become comfortable with this reality, it's time to address the security and risk challenges created through remote work or transitioning employees back to a physical office.
The challenges facing the Chief Information Security Officer and SOC teams are daunting. Our upcoming virtual event on July 29th, the RSA Cybersecurity Summit, looks to address some of the biggest concerns of the day, including how do I adapt my SOC resources for a remote world, and how do I defend my organization from new vulnerabilities and a growing threat landscape. Today, let's go behind the scenes of the RSA Cybersecurity Summit and preview some of the forthcoming discussions and how they'll help address these cybersecurity priorities. All this and more today on The Download.
Over the past several months, the challenge of enabling a remote workforce was a top business priority. For many, this also meant migrating SOC operations into a virtual remote environment for the first time. The stakes for getting it right could not be any higher. In fact, 73% view their SOC as a crucial element of their organization's cybersecurity strategy. Meanwhile, the threat landscape has expanded and businesses now face more cybersecurity risks. Now, with that in mind, the purpose of the RSA Cybersecurity Summit is to learn how to realign your SOC resources for today and beyond, how to adapt for a new threat landscape, how to defend the organization from new cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and finally, how to educate your workforce to identify scams and become security ambassadors.
In a world of remote work, cybersecurity vulnerabilities are growing. But many of the threats are not new. Cybercriminals are just taking advantage of a chaotic situation. So it should come as no surprise that ransomware and phishing attacks are on the rise. But as a panel of experts will explain at RSA Cybersecurity Summit, increased focus, especially in this remote world, needs to be put on personal devices and home networks.
The concept of personal security versus enterprise security is really large from a SOC perspective because I don't know how many times that I've had to help with, setting up routers and Wi-Fi networks and things of that nature. And now you've got everybody at home, and it just scares me to the fact that a lot of people are just using their cable modem plugged into the back without any security, right? Or they're using their default credentials on their router. So although we have VPNs, VPNs are great for concealment, but there's risks associated with that, such as split tunneling, for example, where your home network becomes exposed to the corporate network. And I can guarantee you that the 100% of the workforce is not in line with knowing the security settings of their own infrastructure.
So, we know that remote working has created more vulnerabilities and it's expanding an organization's threat landscape. Among the many challenges that organizations now face, they need to be able to patch systems and run virus scans on machines that they may or may not own but are being used for business purposes. In a session on the expanding threat landscape, Neil Wyler, or Grifter, explains some of the ways that bad actors are taking advantage of remote work environments.
As time has gone on, attackers have to modify the way that they conduct attacks or the way they conduct business, honestly, because a lot of what we're talking about here is organized crime. It's money making. There is more than just, hacktivism or nation state stuff here, but it's how do we conduct business as attackers to make sure it's the most lucrative. So you're seeing attackers adopting technology the same way that we adopt technology. So we have software for a service. You can get on the dark web and go ahead and grab ransomware for a service. Anywhere from $100 to $3,000, you can spin up a ransomware campaign. Cloud-based infrastructure is being used in distributed denial of service attacks, right? So they're leveraging the technologies that we're using to try to make things easier on us and making things easier on themselves as well. So it's that cat and mouse game that we've been playing for decades and will, I'm sure, play for decades more that makes this job so interesting, right?
At the beginning of this year, when I talked to our customer base about the challenges they were facing with regard to COVID-19, the primary focus was on how they could enable their employees to work remotely. So it was all about figuring out VPN capacity, multi-factor authentication, all the basics that were ready and relevant. In the past couple of months, that conversation has shifted towards what it's going to be like to enable that remote workforce to come back into a physical office when that option becomes available. And quite frankly, I think that's the hardest problem of all of them to solve.
As RSA Chief Technology Officer Dr. Zulfikar Ramzan just explained, the greatest challenge in managing this disruption may still be ahead. Returning employees to a physical location amid an ongoing health crisis presents an array of risk challenges. As you'll hear in his upcoming presentation at the RSA Cybersecurity Summit, a few of those challenges include how to manage a hybrid state, how to maintain support for devices across a variety of locations, and how to monitor for human error. If you're wondering about how to securely return employees, even some employees, back to a physical location, this is one session you will not want to miss. Today we previewed some of the sessions and discussions from the upcoming RSA Cybersecurity Summit. We hope you'll be able to take away some actionable advice from the July 29th virtual event to help your organization adapt its cybersecurity strategy or priorities for the future of disruption planning. But as always, we want to hear from you. Are you planning to attend the RSA Cybersecurity Summit? What are you hoping to learn during the event? Be sure to leave a comment with your answer.
Coming up next week on The Download, we're talking about the risks of the digital future. Join us as experts review the ways organizations will transform their business operations and what it means for security and risk teams. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on The Download.